p.m. And we'd like to start the meeting by asking everyone's cooperation to recognize a minute of silence. We had two very well-respected members of our community, Mr. Ken Medland, former City of Nanaimo councillor and a Freedom of the City recipient as well, and Owen Kennedy, a former city councillor, and they both sadly passed away in July. And I just might mention first, Ken Medland served on council for 8 consecutive terms from 1968 until 1976. He received his Freedom of the City along with the entire 1975 council on 2008, September 29. The 1975 council was recognized for the outstanding work during the amalgamation of the city. Owen Kennedy served on council for 5 terms between 1981 and 1993. He was a veteran of the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, and later worked for Fisheries and Oceans as a marine biologist. So having said that, if you would please join me in a minute of silence, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll start off now with the introduction of lead items. Ms. King.
Thank you, Your Worship. We are adding delegations from Mr. Dale Schultz and Mr. Jeff Solomon to item 8G, which is OCP application 68 for Harewood Neighborhood Plan. We are deleting item 8M2, which is property at 241 Irwin Street. That property has been rectified. And we are adding a correspondence to item 12E, which is a letter from Mr. David Graham, the chair of the Gabriel Island Trust Local Committee, regarding the proposed waste-to-energy facility at Duke Point. That's all for the late items, I believe, Your Worship.
Thank you. Could I ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
Your Worship.
Second? Yes.
Might I add something to the agenda?
Sorry?
Might I add something to the agenda?
Yes.
I would like to add an announcement about a momentous event that took place yesterday, if I could.
Okay. Anywhere particular, Ms. King, that should be added? Your choice.
It would probably be appropriate to add it under other business, Your Worship.
Okay.
Thank you.
15. Okay, so when we come to item 15, we'll call upon you at that point to bring forward the comment or the announcement. And having said that, we'll ask for a motion to adopt the minutes. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? And that covers motions for A, B, C, and D. Yes, and yes, and yes. Or do you want to do them individually, Sarah Adam, or you want to do? You can do it as a group. And the very next thing is a presentation, and I'd like to start off by giving you a little bit of background. Michaela King, who's here with us tonight, is the very proud recipient of the prestigious Duke of Edinburgh Bronze Award presentation. And it's certainly my honor on behalf of Council for Michaela King to be presented with the Duke of Edinburgh Bronze Award at tonight's meeting. This award was developed to encourage all youth ages 14 to 25 to be active, to participate in new activities, and to reach for their best. Each level, bronze, silver, and gold, provides for training, achievement, and recognition in the basics of good citizenship. Michaela is also a first Chase River Ranger in the Nanaimo Arbutus District of the Pacific Shores area. Her many guiding activities run parallel to the Duke of Edinburgh program, and as such, she was also awarded her Chief Commissioner Bronze, awarded to her by District Commissioner Noreen Keane. Participants in the Duke of Edinburgh program complete requirements in 4 sections: service, adventurous journey, skills, and physical recreation. Michaela completed 15 service hours over 6 months by acting as a junior leader with the Cedar Brownies. Her commitment to the unit further enhanced her desire to give useful service to others. She completed an adventurous journey, fostering a spirit of adventure and discovery. She learned and practiced a new skill for over 6 months, which encouraged the development of personal interests and practical skills. Finally, she participated in 30 hours over 15 weeks of physical recreation. Michaela eagerly takes on her new challenge and is a wonderful representative of both the Duke of Edinburgh Award and the Girl Guides of Canada. So with that, Michaela, we'll ask you to step forward, please. A very nice lady with a very nice smile. Thank you very much for coming. We are now going to move into item B in the presentation, and that's Ms. Jennifer Rennie, Senior Research Manager, IPSO Public Affairs, to provide a presentation on the City of Nanaimo Citizen Satisfaction Syndicated Survey. Welcome.
Okay, good evening. My name is Jennifer Rennie. I'm a Senior Research Manager at Ipsos Reid. Tonight I'm presenting the results of the 2013 Syndicated Citizen Satisfaction Study. The study was conducted among 300 Nanaimo adults. This was a representative sample. We pulled 300 that looked like the composition by age and gender and region to look like the population of Nanaimo. Interviews were conducted just following the BC provincial election. We paused for the long May weekend, and then we extended into June. These results are presented also with last year's results. We'll be showing side-by-side comparisons, and we'll also be showing results in comparison to other British Columbian municipalities. Ipsos maintains a database of municipal norms, and we will be comparing these to about 37 different municipalities, the average of their results. When we first started interviewing, the first question we wanted to gauge was the top-of-mind issues. The one issue that residents wanted the greatest attention from local leaders. The results we receive are varied, and so we roll up the results into a net category so we could present the themes in a larger percentage. So the top themes that we saw was growth and development, taxation and municipal government spending, the economy, and education were the top items. If you notice at the bottom, we also have a very large bucket for the other category. And when we look at the specific items within that, the top item within that other bucket was the Colliery Dam. And this item in particular...
Sorry, can I just ask you a question? Could you just maybe explain for the benefit of everyone here, at the very top right hand, on the page up behind me, it says in dark, first mention, and then in the very faint is second mention. Could you just explain what that actually means?
Yeah, we asked top of mind. First off, the residents would say what they thought was the first issue, and then we prompted for a second one. So we combined the top two mentions for the total top two there that you could see. And then when we drill down here, I'm presenting also the first and second two items combined. With the other category, with the dam issue, that was mentioned at the forefront by 16%, and then rolled up together with the second mention is 21%. And then we see the themes of growth and development, economy, and taxation and municipal spending. And these results we rolled up, they're very similar to what we've seen in 2012. The only item that has seen some movement is within the social category, but we suspect that some of those items were rolled into the other category. So overall, these results are consistent to what we've seen in 2012. Overall, The city of Nanaimo today is seen as, the quality of life is seen as very positive. We have 93% of residents saying that the quality of life is either good or very good. This is consistent with what we saw in 2012, and it's also consistent with what we see in other British Columbia municipalities.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to go back one item that you had earlier, where it comes to education. What kind of education is meant by that? Is that the business of the school district, or are people not aware that that is not really the municipality's business, or how do you explain that?
What we do is we just try to get a sense of what residents are feeling, what they have on their minds first and foremost before we start asking about specific services, before we get into specific items. So it's just top of mind, what's on your mind right now.
Thank you.
Okay, we did ask perceptions of the change in quality of life over the past 3 years, and 61% feel that the quality of life has remained the same. 17% say that the quality of life has improved, while 17% say it has worsened. What we like to do is calculate what we call a net momentum score, where we typically subtract those who say worsened from those who say improved, and this time it nets out as being even. Previously, and also in other British Columbia municipalities, we see a net momentum score of +5. That just means that at the time, more people said that the quality of life has improved than worsened. Okay, we did ask specifically among those who said that the quality of life has improved. We asked specific reasons why. When viewing these results, keep in mind the base size is very low, so we are talking about 49 people, so the percentages, the individuals who said these responses is quite small, but general themes is that there's more activities and things to do, growth and development, revitalization of the downtown city center. We saw those last two items as well in 2012. All other items were mentioned by less than 10%, giving a varying of personal interest. And again, when we look at this slide, the base size is relatively small. We're looking at a base size of 53. The top item as to why the quality of life has worsened is jobs and wages. And this was the top item also in 2012. The next bucket is negative mentions of staff and council. And from what we saw here, specifically was pertaining to spending. So we did ask perceptions of municipal operations of the whole sample. We asked about municipal government, including council and administration as a whole, council itself and administration itself. And overall, the scores are pretty positive, with 66% saying that they are satisfied with municipal government as a whole, 63% satisfied with council, and 66% satisfied with administration. And these results are consistent with 2012. The numbers do look like they have shifted, but in calculating statistical significance, we do need larger gaps for there to be considered a true difference. So there is some directional shifts, but overall the results are the same as obtained in 2012. When thinking about the overall level and quality of services provided by the city, 91% say that they are satisfied. This is also consistent with what we've seen in 2012 and comparable to what we've seen in other British Columbia municipalities. For the second year in a row, we measured the same 3 specific services. We measured traffic management, communication, and public transit, with 68% being satisfied with traffic management, 63% satisfied with communication, and 49% satisfied with public transit. Again, these scores are consistent with what we have seen in 2012. Directionally speaking, they are differing from the other municipalities, but some of these items are so specific, it's somewhat difficult to measure, especially public transit, given the variance in sizes of other municipalities that we're using in our norms.
On that last slide, why those categories?
When we do our syndicated study, we offer a core set of questions, and for this question in particular, we offer choices for specific city services, and my contact had mentioned that we will be remeasuring what was measured in 2012. I can't answer how those were chosen last year, but they were a selection of the city to be measured for this study.
Yeah, just a point of interest, the public transit is not, of course, the cities. Communication with residents, and then the traffic management part of it's the highway management too, through town too, so it's an interesting one. I'd prefer to see something like Public Works, Parks and Rec, and a couple of those maybe. Maybe later. Thank you.
Good point.
Overall, residents are saying that they do receive good value for their tax dollars when thinking about the programs and services that they do receive from the city. This is consistent with what we've seen in 2012 and comparable to other British Columbia municipalities. And we did provide a choice to residents whether or not they would choose to increase taxes to maintain or expand services, or would they choose to cut services to maintain tax levels or even reduce taxes. And generally speaking, the residents would prefer to increase taxes, mostly to maintain services at current levels rather than to cut services. This is consistent with what we've seen in 2012, not as strong as what was seen prior to recessionary times, but the overall results are consistent with what we are seeing now in other municipalities as well. With the general topic of communication, there is a variance again in different residents' communication needs and what they are looking for the City of Nanaimo to provide for them. But primarily they are looking for general information on municipal taxes, property taxes, budget. They're looking for information on meetings, planning, land use, and new developments. Nothing else was mentioned by more than 10%, but there is interest in a wide variety of topics. The top ones that we've seen are comparable to what has been seen before.
Yeah, go ahead.
The last two, no answer or I don't know, that's a total of 40%. Is that high?
That's telling in itself, whether there's an interest in having information received. It could be interpreted two ways: not knowing how to communicate with the city, indifference, or at the time there's just nothing of interest. What we also have seen is people aren't necessarily looking for the city to provide the information, they're seeking it out themselves.
Thank you.
We did ask about preferred methods of communication, and there's very little change in the top mentions from last time. Traditional methods are still quite popular, with newspaper being the top. This time we're also seeing, however, city website, internet, and email, and these electronic communications starting to pop up. And this time around as well, social media seems to be on par with telephone slowly going down as a method of communication. And that would be the end.
Okay, that's the presentation. Thank you very much. Very interesting. We do have some questions for you. Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Rennie. In the top of mind community issues, the area that had the biggest difference between the norm was in the area of transportation. Could you elaborate on that a bit? People seem quite satisfied with the transportation methods in this community, or is it just because we've recently completed a transportation study, or can you elaborate a bit on it? That was quite a difference between the norm, 16%.
Yeah, I can say some of the other municipalities that we have interviewed at this time are facing some pretty substantial issues. Usually when we see these types of top-of-mind mentions, they're often event-driven. So if there's a hot topic, if there's recent media, the numbers start to go up, and it can be potentially that's why in other municipalities those numbers are higher. Here we also had the one item that was brought to the surface more so than any other mention. At this point, I can't really say why. When we ask this question, people are giving quick 1 or 2 short word answers, and they're not really elaborating. I can search into the verbatim comments and have those sent if there's something that someone mentioned a little bit more than normal, but usually it's just what it is.
Thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation. I've only had one question on this, and that was whether 300 is a big enough sample size to have confidence in the results. So can you address that?
We've been using 300 as a typical base size. We've been conducting this syndicated study for over a decade among a number of municipalities. And, you know, even if we were to do a province-wide study, we do 400 to 500. 400 or 300 provides results that are reliable within 5.7 points, which means if we were to repeat this study 19 times out of 20, the results will fall within that range. So statistically speaking, it's a good base size, and compared to what we do province-wise, it's a very healthy number.
Councillor Kipp.
Thank you. I'm one of the ones that questions the 300, whether it's a big enough sample and whether people actually tell you the truth. I don't know if they tell you the truth in the samples. The percentage, the 5.7, 19 out of 20, is that 5.7 as a variation, or is that 5.7 on either side of the figure you come up with?
Plus or minus, it's on either
Plus or
side.
minus, so it's up to an 11% variance.
Could be depending on the
On the
individual
calculated number.
response, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And it,
Please.
Okay, Councillor Pecci has a comment, but just beforehand, I just want to ask a question, which actually was started by Councillor Pecci, and that is that on that information needs, the page 68 in our manual, and just to reiterate what Councillor Pecci had said earlier, I mean, 40% either had nothing or don't know. I mean, is that 40% out of 300 is a huge percentage. And my question is this something that you've seen in other communities? Is this, it's not uncommon, in other words?
yeah, we
It seems like a
have.
high figure, but
We have, and when we're asking about, for example, communication with the city, it is about half who have had contact. So that's in
it's not
line.
unusual. Really.
No, and you know, again, it's combined with no. I don't have anything now that I could think of. Also, I don't know top of mind what I need right now.
Okay.
So.
Well, I was curious. Thank you. Councillor Pecci.
Thank you, Worship. Final question. With regards to preferred communication, I noticed that 37% responded by newspaper. Do you have a way of correlating that to newspaper readership in a municipality so that there's a little bit more flesh on that?
Not with the information I have right now, no.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Okay, Ms. Rennie, thank you very much. Very, very interesting, and I think it's important that we as a council no, are you on, Councillor Anderson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. And the last part of your presentation, it actually shows down the breakdown between age groups and so on. Are you actually able to target what those specific age groups were found as the most important issues facing the city?
We have provided detailed tables breaking out by age, gender, so you can see the results individually on the specific age groups.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, as I was just saying, but thank you very much, because I think it's important that we, from time to time, do really almost a report card on activities, and do appreciate your company getting involved and presenting the information. Very interesting. Thank you. Okay, we move into 8 and 8A, Community Safety and Development, and 8A, Development Variance Permit DVP 212 at 4900 Wellington Road. Purpose to obtain council authorization to vary the provisions of zoning bylaw 2011, number 4500, Community Corridor COR 3, condition of use to recognize 2 existing retail use buildings which each have a gross floor area greater than 500 square meters. And is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters regarding that DBP 212?
Your Worship, I move that Council issue development variance permit number DVP 212 at 4900 Wellington Road.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion, none. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Rezoning application RA 313 at 3690 Country Club Drive. Purpose to present a rezoning application for a property located at 3690 Country Club Drive to rezone the property from single dwelling residential R1 to residential corridor COR1 in order to permit a 4-story multifamily development. On this we have several questions, but if we could get it moved and seconded to get on the floor.
Moved.
Who wants to do?
I would move staff's recommendations
Okay.
1 and 2, Your Worship.
Thank you. And moved and seconded. And discussion, Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. I wonder if staff could give us a bit of an idea as to potential traffic implications with this development. We've had some concerns on the one that's finished across the street, and particularly how this would fit in with the proposed Rock City intersection that's planned.
Mr. Anderson.
Members of Council, as part of this rezoning application, traffic impact assessment was done, and as the result of that indicated, the proposed development itself does not create any need for improvements or off-site traffic issues from this particular development. The report does go on to speak that in the larger picture, existing and future traffic concerns will need to be addressed, and that would be done so through the Rock City Road intersection that is part of a future development cost charge project for the city. The proponents are proposing through community contribution to provide funds toward that intersection design and development.
And a follow-up, if I may. Can you explain that private driveway that is part of this?
Yeah. I wonder if I could, we have a location plan, Your Worship, that might help us with that. There is currently a private driveway used on the south edge of this property, so between 3690 and, I'm sorry, the address I can't read, from 3150, there is a lane that connects Norwell to Country Club Drive, and that is currently in practice used by many to avoid going up Wassel Way, and that is intended to continue to function, and staff would hope that through the redevelopment of the adjacent lands, we would secure that as a more formal right-of-way.
And the reason I'm asking that is I've used that quite often myself in order to then turn right onto Norwell Drive. And it's not an easy maneuver. And with the extra cars that will come with this, I've got some concerns about that.
Yeah, again, the research that was done for this is indicating that this development will propose an additional concern.
Mr. Anderson, could I just ask a question? There's a couple of speakers as well. But just to follow up on this lane, you said it's a private lane? So in other words, it's not gazetted, it's not a city road, it's just by right of trespass that people are using it. Is there any indication or any reason that the city shouldn't look at trying to acquire this road, or will the parties involved with this consider that might be a public amenity that would be worth choosing, because then the city would be responsible for maintenance of the road?
Yeah, the lane, as we call it, is not a formal right-of-way. It is on the adjacent property, which is also owned by the proponent for the rezoning that's before council this evening. The discussions have led staff to believe that through the redevelopment of those adjacent lands, we would be able to secure that in a formal right-of-way at that time. At this point in time, it's off the property of the proposed development and on an adjacent property, so our opportunity is not as great at this stage to secure that in right-of-way.
The reason for the question, obviously, is if it's privately held land, the owner at any time could choose to put a chain across it and block access. So I've used the road myself on some occasions, not that often, but others that do as well. And I'd hate to see the loss of it in case there's some kind of a challenge by the owner and he chooses not to give access.
Your Worship, just to be clear, though, it's the same owner that owns this.
I understand that, and that's why I'm suggesting this might be an opportune time to discuss options. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. So this lane dedication, and I'm just wondering out loud, is it might be something that may be more appropriate for pedestrian access versus vehicular access. Or egress. I'm not sure. It may be interesting to have it as an emergency opportunity for emergency vehicles, if such, for in the event of an emergency. But I note that it indicates in the community contribution toward pedestrian and intersection improvements in the area. Yep. So I suspect that is making specific reference to the Rock City intersection.
The intersection component is, the pedestrian is actually referring to a pedestrian link that's on the north side of this property. So there is a pedestrian link that needs some improvement directly on the north side of this subject property. And so that's part of the amenity contribution proposal, is that we would take some money toward that improvement and the other would go toward the intersection improvement of Rock City Road for the vehicle improvement.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question was very similar to Councillor Bestwick's, but just a little bit more detail, if you don't mind, Mr. Anderson. With the $58,000 monetary contribution, would the intersection improvements to Rock City possibly include a south turning lane, southbound?
Yes, my understanding is that intersection would be a full movement intersection, signalized. And that, of course, is in our development cost charge capital project list.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just aware that if this passes these readings, that it'll be going to public hearing. So just listening to the comments of my colleagues, it seems to me that perhaps staff could alert the proponent to the specific concerns that council has. And we've heard from neighbors, I guess, that traffic is a concern, and if they could come prepared to address that, that would be very helpful to us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see no further questions on it. So if someone would like to move, it's moved and seconded now. The question, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move into the bylaw that's applicable. The recommendation is that we receive the report pertaining to, does someone want to move? Bylaw, rather, on 1 and 2, top of page 3, rather. Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? Councillor Bestwick.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was going to move it. But that's
okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now we move into the rezoning application RE 320 at 60.
Your Worship. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sorry, the second one too. I beg pardon.
We would
and
need
the motion
to read the second,
passed the second reading
bylaw,
too.
Yes.
So does the same mover and seconder want to take that as well? Okay. Second reading. And the same seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, I missed that. Now we're into the rezoning application RE 320 at 6010 and 6016 Tweedsmuir Crescent. Purpose is to present a rezoning application for property located at 6016 and 6010 Tweedsmuir Crescent to rezone the properties from a single dwelling residential R1 to single dwelling residential small lot R2 in order to permit a small lot subdivision. And the staff recommendation is there. And Councillor Brennan, did you want to move it to get on the floor and then speak to it?
Yep.
Okay, and is there a seconder? Move and seconder? Okay, discussion, Councillor Brennan.
No, that was just
to move,
wanting
okay.
to be recognized.
Councillor Patchy, thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Just for clarity's sake, Your Worship, I would like staff to explain to the public here and at home about the architectural look of of the thing. I have to be honest with you. I had some problems, not only at the APC meeting, but doing the homework for this. That this is a rezoning request to go to row housing, and I'm having kind of a difficulty seeing row housing here. It is. I'm on the right subject.
As
am I not?
opposed to duplex?
On
As
this
opposed
one,
to a duplex.
the issue was perhaps related to the form and whether it was single-family dwelling or duplex for this rezoning application.
Yeah.
And the proposal is for single-family dwellings on these smaller lots. And I should also inform council that given the small lot size, the 327 meter square lot size, they wouldn't be allowed to have suites in those lots, so they would be single-family dwellings on small lots.
I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bestwick, sorry.
Thank you, Worship. What is displayed here in our handouts as a question to staff is pictures or photos that would be an example of, and you answered one question that I was going to ask about whether there could be a suite attached on these small lots, and so I appreciate that you indicated that. The proposed variances for depths is rather significant on Lot 1 and Lot 4. And will these houses have the same massing or footprint on the respective lots? And how do you view that impact in the form and character in that particular neighborhood?
My understanding is, yes, the unit types would be the same on each of the lots, so you would have similar forms on those lots. On the two with the lesser depth, you would simply see less of a yard in them. But the depth, I appreciate that your comments that it is more significant than the other depth reductions that would be considered in a future DVP. But 8 and 6 meters off of that total length is not going to be significant in the context of a small lot development. I think that's the difference that we see. The yards surrounding the units are less than what we would see in a typical R1 or conventional setting.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. And Your Worship, if I might just make a comment, we're seeing considerable small lot subdivisions take place, and I think that the purpose and the intent when we established this was to create density and different opportunities and different uses throughout our community, north and south, east and west, as it relates. And when we speak to sizes of this magnitude, 4 units on a couple of lots or 3 lots or otherwise, that to me is the intent of where we were when we started this process. So I'm quite comfortable with it, providing that, of course, that the developers are sensitive to the needs of the community that they're developing in, and I guess that would mean sort of their neighbors. So I'll be supporting this recommendation.
I guess the point being that the examples we're showing will accurately reflect the finished product when it's done. Councillor Kipp.
That is interesting. My points are similar to Councillor Bester, where this is an actual infill that gives a range of housing within the area, and I appreciate that fact of it. There would only be, and if it was 2 single-family lots, Mr. Anderson, sorry if I could through to him, there would be 2 single-family houses, and they could have 2 suites in them.
That's correct.
And so there could be 4 living units on that property. What they're going to here is actually real single-family dwellings now with an actual single unit. So the density of the number of units on the property hasn't increased, but the square footage of the units could increase. So if you had a 1,500 square foot house with a 900 square foot suite in it, but now you could have 2 1,500 square foot houses. Yeah. But it does give a mix of housing in the area, and I support this. I feel this is a better infill than a full massing of small lots versus that. And this is again interesting. How do we deal with residential form and character? Because we have no regulations now for residential form and character, and that's where I think Councillor Bestwick's second point was, what do we push into these neighborhoods, and does it look like the houses in that area? And I think that's a concern that I've heard over and over again. So just a point. But this is going to go forward now to public hearing, I believe, if we pass this? Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. I was on the wrong item, you know, I apologize. So I now have my question in any case. The R2 zoning that is being requested here, R2 normally allows for secondary suites. Explain to us why they're not allowed here. Please.
Again, to allow for a secondary suite, the lot size needs to be a minimum of 370 square meters. And these lots are, as I mentioned, I believe 327, so they're below the required minimum.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick one through you to Mr. Anderson. Some of the units are going to be 4 stories, 4-story units. It says 2 to 4-story building forms.
If I may, Your
Could you
Worship,
explain?
that's the community plan saying in general, in a neighborhood designation, we can see
okay,
2 to 4-story farms.
So that's the designation, but these aren't necessarily going to be okay. I was
The
just worried
zoning is more of a 2-story
was
form.
worrying about the sight lines. Good, thank you.
Okay, I see no further questions on it. Now, it's been moved and seconded, and that covers items 1 and 2 under C. And so we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And then move down into the bylaw. If someone would like to move the bylaw. Move 1 and 2?
1 and 2.
Right.
Or you can only do but 1 first for
1?
first
Okay,
reading.
we'll do 1.
The zoning
I caught the
bylaw,
glance too here. Then.
2013.
And moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. And 2?
Zoning amendment bylaw 2013, 4500-049, passed second reading.
Second, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move into item D, rezoning application RA 321 at 5620 Hammond Bay Road / 5709 Ocean View Terrace. Purpose is to present an application to rezone the property located at 5709 Ocean View Terrace and a portion of the property located at 5620 Hammond Bay Road from single dwelling residential R1 to row house residential R7 in order to permit a 4-unit multiple family row house development on 2 lots.
Your Worship, I move that Council receive the report pertaining to zoning amendment bylaw 2013 4500.047 and direct staff to secure the community contribution prior to the adoption of the bylaw should Council support the bylaw at 3rd reading.
Thank you. Second, move and second. Discussion. Councillor Patchy. No. Okay, and so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. In the bylaw.
Your Worship, I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2013 number 4500.047 to rezone property at 5709 Ocean View Terrace, 5620 Hammond Bay Road from single dwelling R1 to row housing R7 in order to permit 2 row house units on each lot, pass first reading.
Second the motion.
Seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And 2.
And Your Worship, that zoning amendment bylaw 2013 4500.047 pass second reading.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into rezoning application RA 323 at 2180 Highland Boulevard. Purpose to present a rezoning application for property located at 2180 Highland Boulevard to rezone the subject property from Comprehensive Development District Zone 8 CD8 to Neighborhood Center CC2 in order to permit the construction of a commercial building. And there's the staff recommendation. If someone would like to move it and second it on the floor.
I move staff's recommendation that Council receive the report pertaining to zoning amendment bylaw 2013 number 4500.050.
Okay, is there a seconder? Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Patchy, did you have it on this?
Yes, just for the record, Your Worship, you may recall that 2 or 3 years ago there was a request for this general area to have a liquor store. Yeah. And the zoning that's now being requested, CC2, does permit for a liquor store, but only as a site-specific measure. So with what we are approving, if we're going to approve it, it will not automatically include a liquor store, just so that people know.
Your Worship, if
Sure, go ahead.
I'm not advocating either way, but we're dealing right now with receiving the report for the zoning amendment bylaw. I totally respect where Councillor Patchy is coming from, but as I understand, we're not dealing with site-specific use as it relates at this moment. we'll have an opportunity to discuss that at a later, in a later opportunity. Is that,
Solid point. Do you want to?
is that correct?
If the applicant at some point applies for a liquor store, then you'll have the opportunity to address it, but that's not on the table at this point. That's correct.
And not until that point. And the only reason I'm bringing it up, Councillor Best, because at the Advisory Planning Committee, there was a delegation who was quite upset about something that is not in the cards at this particular moment.
But I believe
That
that,
being a liquor store.
yeah, I was going to say, I believe that site also was considered for a doctor's office, was it not? So that there has been other uses suggested that haven't also been approved at this point. So, okay, so we voted on that. We're into the bylaw. We haven't. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now we're into the bylaw.
Your Worship, I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2013-4500.050 to rezone property at 2180 Highland Boulevard from Comprehensive Development District Zone 8, CD8 to Neighborhood Center, CC2, in order to facilitate a commercial development past first reading.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And two?
And Your Worship, I move that amendment bylaw 2013-4500.050 pass second reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into the official community plan application, OCP 74, rezoning application RA 318, 2113 and 2129 Boxwood Road, the Edgewood Treatment Facility. The purpose is to obtain council approval for an official community plan amendment OCP 74 and rezoning application RA 318 to recognize and support the expansion of the Edgewood Treatment Facility. And the staff recommendation is before us. Would someone like to move 1 and 2?
I will move that council receive a report pertaining to official community plan amendment bylaw 2013 number 6500.024 and zoning amendment bylaw 2013 number 4500.046 and direct staff to secure the community contribution prior to the adoption of the rezoning bylaw should council support the bylaw at third reading.
Okay, is there a second? No discussion? Oh, Councillor Besser, go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, hang on.
Thank you, Worship. He'll do anything to get thanked a whole lot. I'm just curious about the zoning. Is it the owner making the application for the site-specific down zoning in terms of acquisition of all the properties, and which is fine. That's fine. So the owner is asking to have it down zoned. Is that correct? I just need a little clarification. Rezoned.
May the owner applicant respecting the rezoning. There are lots that are not subject to rezoning at this time that are owned by others. The whole lands under the official community plan are proposed to be put into a neighborhood designation, but the rezoning does not apply to the properties that are not owned by the Edgewood Treatment Facility.
Okay, thank you.
And the table summarizes on page 2.
I think that there's a pretty long summary.
Yeah.
And my other question is just simply for clarification, is in the community contribution. And is the community contribution being requested by the owner to the owner?
It would appear that way in terms of the terminology, but maybe I could just add that the program that's being proposed to direct the community contribution toward is a community program and an outreach program and not a treatment facility program. So just to clarify that, it's maybe a bit of a subtle clarification, but the proposal is that it would be part of that outreach community program by Edgewood.
Thank you. So absolutely no concerns or issues from my perspective relative to what the intended uses are and you know the wonderful program that's already in operation there. But I just had to ask those questions for clarification.
Okay, so that's the recommendation has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into the bylaws. Would somebody like to move number 1? Sorry?
The official community plan amendment bylaw 2013, number 6500.024, passed first reading.
Seconder? Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion, none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And
And
2?
then official community plan amendment bylaw 2013, number 6500.024, pass second reading.
Second? That's fine. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The zoning amendment bylaw 2013, number 4500.046, RA3, to rezone the property at 2113-2129 Boxwood Road from single dwelling residential R1 to duplex residential R4 to Community Service 1, CS1, in order to expand the adjacent personal care facility at Edgewood. And there's 2 motions there that we can take together.
The zoning amendment bylaw 2013, number 4500.046, pass first reading.
Second. And, well, we can do it seriatim. All those in favor? Opposed? And 2?
That zoning amendment bylaw 2013, number 4500.046, pass second reading.
Second. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The official community plan application OCP 68 Harewood Neighborhood Plan, to the purpose to present the amended content of the Harewood Neighborhood Plan. And it just says here, there's a note, due to the volume of material associated with this report, please be advised that a copy of the Harewood Neighborhood Plan is available through the following link, and the link is provided there for you, www.nanaimo.ca/go/Harewood.1. Oh, sorry, dot. And we have 2 delegations. The first delegation is Mr. Dale Schultz. Mr. Schultz, you have up to 10 minutes.
I wanted to address the pedestrian network and open space plan, and it's figure 8 on page 61. And actually, I found another one, but I didn't get it here in time, and it's figure 9 on page 63. And it's in respect to my property at 776 Park Avenue. And I noticed on the plan that it's marked as a proposed open space. And now nobody, I don't know who proposed it. It is a pretty open space and it's very nice, but it is my open space. And the reason I ask about it is that, you know, since I moved there, my wife and I bought the place. I've been sitting up there and planning my house of the future. And I'm happy to say that what I've conceptualized fits really good with the neighborhood plan, with what the buildings of the future should be like. But I was concerned about it being marked as an open space. And then I saw in figure 9 the watercourses map, and the little arrow goes right on to my property, and it's about, and the label says about expanding and connecting open space network along watercourse. I'm sorry, that's the wrong map. I didn't get the right one down. I saw that one and stopped reading and applied to come in as a delegation, and then found.
Do we have the correct map that we can follow?
Figure 9.
We don't.
Page 63. But on the label on the watercourses map, the light green ones that say proposed open space, it says for watercourse setbacks and strategic property acquisitions. And, you know, I mean, I just kind of concerned, because how will this affect my plan to build my house in the future? Or if it was to sell the property, what effect does it have being marked this way as a proposed open space?
Maybe, Mr. Siebert, do you want to, are you going to do it, or Mr. Anderson? Go ahead.
I believe we've got the draft land use map.
This is the one you're looking for, is it? On the wall behind me?
No, that looks like the south. Is that from number 2? It looks like South Harewood. I'm trying to think of where we are there. Oh no, there's my property. Now it's not marked like that on this map. That's, but on figure 9, the water, could I show you the map?
Excuse me.
This is figure 9 water courses, and there it is right there. Okay. It's page 63 of the first part of the document. And I'm sorry I didn't have the right map for the folks. I had a real hard time trying to isolate a page out of this document.
Just one moment, sir. Just, Mr. Anderson, you have some comment here?
Can we just maybe add a little bit? That map that was up shows that's the urban design framework proposed for the area, so it's not the land use plan that governs land use respecting that. So what it's doing is it's identifying a watercourse feature that's on that property, and that's what's being shown. And the design framework is saying perhaps there's an opportunity to take advantage of that feature. So that's what's being shown on that plan. The land use plan, to my knowledge, it was up a second ago, is not designating those lands park.
Okay,
So there's that distinction between the guidance and recognizing a natural feature versus designating its future use.
So I mean, the arrows say that it targets properties that are undeveloped and/or include significant steep slopes, but it also says in here about strategic site acquisition and expropriation. And that's on the watercourse map. And it says acquire properties along riparian corridors. Now, when I did a little subdivision on my property a couple of years ago, I gave up another 15 meters from the Cat Stream as a riparian zone. And so that's already an open space.
Your Worship.
I was just confused why two of the maps show my property as a proposed open space, but then the other one didn't.
Well, Mr. Schultz, let's see. I think the city manager has a comment, or Mr.
I was
Anderson,
just
go ahead.
going to
Sorry.
say that certainly the intent would be to work with property owners on exploring those opportunities with them. These are shown as opportunities on those maps, not as requirements on you. So if your desire is to leave it as is or develop it in another way, that guideline map isn't dictating to you what
So
you do with it.
this wouldn't affect my applying for permits or?
No, and I think what we should do, if you wouldn't mind, perhaps we can follow up even as soon as tomorrow, if you like.
I would really like that. Now, can I mention another thing on the, and this was the map that I first, the pedestrian and network plan. On the Cat Stream, there's currently, it's marked as a pedestrian crossing across the Cat Stream up to Connaught Street from Park Avenue. And it's been a pedestrian path forever. I walked through it as a kid, we probably all did. And I really want to thank the city for putting a span across the Cat Stream there. It was a brilliant move, and it was really, really cool that you recycled the bridge from the quarterway. I don't know who was responsible for that, but it was a brilliant thing to do, to reuse it. And it was poetry in motion when they put it in. It was fantastic to see it go in. But the path itself is undeveloped. They dug it out with a cat. It's all roots and mud. And then at the steep part where it goes up to Connaught, it's all loose gravel. My daughter fell down that last night going to work. It's real dangerous, and I wonder if maybe you could find some concrete stairs from maybe even something else that's being torn down and put them in there, and then gravel on the flat part of the path. It's a traditional path, and it's really good that it's almost there. And it is probably one of the quickest ways from Harewood to the south end if you're on foot. So I think it's real important.
Your Worship, we can bring that up with the park staff and have that looked at.
Okay.
Sorry, I know I
that's
didn't
fine.
have to do it particularly with that. And that's all I wanted to say. So
Okay, no, that's great. And then, but what you can do is do check with Mr. Bruce Anderson behind you here, and also with the park staff, and Bruce probably can give you a contact there as well. And make sure that they can take the time to explain to you exactly what it means, so you know yourself, sir.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Your Worship.
And Councillor Bestwick, sorry.
Thank you. I just have
for the delegation?
not to the delegation, but just compliments though to the delegation's delivery and request for assistance there on that pathway. Well done. I just wanted to confirm with staff that the person's property, on the assumption, of course, that these two pass, his properties won't be constricted in any way, as technically speaking. So that what he has today is what he has tomorrow, in other words.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's on.
And what those framework plans are showing are opportunities. And if the applicant was to come forward with a development proposal, and we show a possible pedestrian connection, we would enter into discussions with them about how we might accommodate that or not on that property.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, the next delegation is Mr. Jeff Solomon. Up to 10 minutes, sir.
Thank you. It's just in with respect to the Harewood plan. I have to be honest with you, I hadn't paid as much attention to the plan as I probably should have, because I was worried about the park, as you well know, and that it hadn't been included in the plan. And I'm really glad that there is mention of it now, and that it seems to be part of the Harewood Community Plan. There was a number of notations in the plan, and it talked of the extremely rich history of the Harewood community, the strong sense of the community, and the pride of the community. It was only amalgamated into the city in, I believe, 75, but it has a much longer and extensive history. I think I've met so many people who live in the area that take extreme pride in where they live, and they think this is their world, this is their place, and they've lived there. Some people for many generations. So it's been a really eye-opening experience for me to meet so many people. There's, in terms of, there are some other notations in the plan, obviously density and infilling, and that happens in every part of Nanaimo, I believe. The coach houses and just making them a little tighter. We have to remember too that Harewood was 5 acres. That's the original name of the area. It was 5 acres, and it was a farming community which supported some of the coal miners. And some people live, well, everybody lives and chooses to live in different areas for their own reason, but certainly the open space and the fact that it's a more established area, there's a lot of trees, they have maybe a small house, but they have a very large yard. These are things that a lot of people take pride in. So as we fill in and we densify, we just need to keep in mind that a lot of people have chosen to live in those areas, especially the south end, because it has that semi-rural feeling for it, and that's something that they really enjoy. It's not like we don't love our neighbors or like our neighbors, but sometimes we don't want to live 3 or 4 or 5 feet away from the next residence. So there's an advantage to that. As we densify as well, the green spaces become even more important to every community. You just have to look at a place like Vancouver. You have hundreds of thousands of people, but if they say that, well, gee, I live in a condo and I live here, and I live in a concrete building, but I can get to Stanley Park and I can access that on a daily basis. That makes their life livable, and everybody needs those green spaces, and we want to nurture those and build those, and it makes life sustainable. So certainly, when it comes to areas that we with the parks and of course Collier Dam, it's an important part of the community. So we want to keep that. Norman Abbey presented a little while ago, and he talked about the heritage value and what we need to keep and retain. We've lost a lot. Nanaimo was built on coal, let's face it. I don't think I have to tell anybody about that. I only go back 30 years, but I mean, obviously, this is a rich coal mining history, and yet we don't have too much left in terms of reminding us of that history. And he talked about how we've just recently lost the last 5-acre parcel there on 3rd Street, and it's being developed right now, and of course Dickinson Barn. And as we all know, Harewood School is kind of on its last, it's probably not going to be here in a number of years. It's been left vacant for a long period of time. So Collier Dam really is one of the last last remaining places where there's the physical evidence of our coal mining history. So it's really an important place for all of Nanaimo in terms of our heritage. Leon Cake had presented on Wednesday, and I just want to verify because he talked about that, on May 13th, staff recommendation, and all of City Council had voted unanimously that there would be dams that in our park, and we all agreed on that. And I just want to verify that that's still the intention, that that's the goal, that we're working towards that end, because that was unanimous from both staff and council. And I just want to remind people that that's the goal that we're working towards at this stage of the game with Nanaimo, with City, and with the community. And that's very achievable, I certainly do believe. Towards working to that end, I'd like to propose that I believe that the website right now with regards to Calgary Dam is somewhat outdated, and there's also some misinformation on the website. And it may be useful at this stage to revisit the website and perhaps have we would very much like to be involved with going over, perhaps with Mr. Cooper or whatever, to go over the website, to just to revitalize the website and to present the information, perhaps update it and present it, correct some of the errors that perhaps are in there right now. It may be a useful way of doing things. The other thing was, I think this is the beginning of a potential new partnership. Dale, who just presented a minute ago, he just said, well, he lives next to the river, the Cat Stream, and he picked out all sorts of garbage from the Cat Stream, and there's opportunities in terms of improving the park, obviously, but there's a wealth of people, there's a number of people that can be, it's hard for city staff to do everything, but to call on people to say, hey, we can improve this place, this park, we can work together, we can have a work team to get rid of all the invasive species in the park, or to clean the river. We can call on these people, and I think we can do a really, really good job if we work together. I think there's really good opportunities for there. I'd just like to finalize. I saw lots of nice pictures on the City of Nanaimo, the community plan and that in terms of the housing and whatever. And I know this isn't potentially in the future, whatever. But the biggest issue, it's very obvious. I mean, obviously we need to keep the park, and it's the center point of our community. But the biggest issue is basically King Arthur Court. It's 564 Fifth Street. It has been for a long time. This is right next to our commercial area. As a social worker, I was in there hundreds of times. Well, I'd say I was in pretty much every unit in there, many on numerous occasions. It's not that the people are. I don't blame the people, but it's a blight. 564 Fifth Street is a blight in our community, right next to the mall, and it's the most obvious thing when people say about Harewood, and they see that going back to the commercial area. That's what they see, and it doesn't have to be like that. Right next to it is a very well-run complex, 285 Harewood Road, and that's Maple Tree Village, and so that's right next door, and you could see the tremendous difference. I think that there needs to be something done with updating that, or doing something else with that part of the city, because that's really a very, very obvious problem in terms of Harewood. So. But other than that, I just want to thank you guys again for your time and your efforts, and that's all I have to ask.
Okay, thank you. Okay. The staff recommendation, I believe, has been moved. So if someone can move the staff recommendation on.
I'll move that staff recommend that Council receives a report pertaining to the amended official community plan amendment bylaw 2013-6500.022 and request that Council reconsider the bylaw at second reading as amended.
Okay, is there a seconder?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Richard. This would be to staff. A couple of days ago, maybe a week ago, we had a communication from Mr. Tim McGrath, who's with the Collier Dam Preservation Society, who mentioned the necessity to be more specific about the floodplain in the Harewood area on the various and sundry maps that we have, and I would like to have your opinion on the possibility of that.
Certainly, Your Worship, we're in the process of moving forward to seek a consultant to prepare a floodplain study for the Chase River. Currently, we use the zoning bylaw of 1.5 meters above the high water mark, but over time, hopefully into next year, we'll be in a position where that is mapped and it can assist us in making recommendations to council for rezonings and subdivisions and subsequently building permits.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now we go into the bylaw.
Your Worship, I move that council rescind second reading of the official community plan amendment by the 2013-6500.022 within the official community plan.
Second motion.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And do you want to move to?
Yes, that official community plan amendment by law 2013-6500.022 pass second reading as amended.
Second
Moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Heritage application permit, HAP 27 at 100 Chapel Street. Purpose to submit for council approval for the heritage alteration permit application, which proposes to replace the existing St. Paul's Anglican Church Hall with a new hall. And staff recommendation that the motion is before us there. And if someone would like to, Councillor Brennan.
So issue heritage alteration permit application number HAP 27 for the removal and replacement of St. Paul's Anglican Church Hall at 100 Chapel Street.
Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we're moving into Intermunicipal Business License Program Review. The purpose is to obtain council approval for the City of Nanaimo to participate in an intermunicipal business license program with the 12 Central Vancouver Island local governments. I think this is something that the Greater Nanaimo Chamber of Commerce has recommended and encouraged, and so the motion before us now is to prepare an intermunicipal business license bylaw for council's consideration.
Thank you, Mr. I'll move that council direct staff to prepare an intermunicipal business license bylaw for council's consideration.
Second? Moved and seconded. We have several for discussion. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, I was just curious as to what type of revenue generation this may bring about, and whether or not the city will lose any potential money out of this intermunicipal business license program.
Your Worship, until the program is actually in place, we won't know the actual numbers, but the provincial government working with these local governments have done a study, and the expectation is the City of Nanaimo's revenue will increase slightly. It's projected in the $6,000 to $8,000 range, but again, until it's actually in place, we don't know for that for sure. That's a projection.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and I think this is a great program that we're moving forward with, so I hope that once this bylaw comes forward that we will actually adopt it.
Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. To staff as well. I think it might be a good idea to try and explain where this process is at this point. I know you've had meetings, but there are 12 jurisdictions listed as a possibility. I don't think all of those are in attendance. Could you maybe just tell us a little bit where you're at and what the future is for this?
Your Worship, since Council gave us direction to pursue this matter, as mentioned, following a presentation by the Chamber of Commerce, is city staff have been working with the other municipalities and the provincial government ministry to move this forward. We've recently had a meeting which 6 of the 12 potential participating municipalities attended, and they all showed considerable interest in moving forward. Our understanding and our discussions with the other 6 for the total of 12, they're very much interested in moving forward as well. We all have to move forward through our respective councils to get this approval, and our understanding is the goal is that everybody on the list will be in position by the end of the year for implementation on January 1st.
Is there an expectation that Nanaimo takes the lead in this?
A number of the smaller municipalities have wanted to see what Nanaimo's position on this before moving forward, because of course a lot of the businesses we're talking about who may be pursuing intermunicipal licenses are based in Nanaimo, and therefore there was a question of what the City Council, the Nanaimo City Council supportive for this program was, and hence we're before you tonight to see if you are supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Worship. I like the idea of the business license and expanding people. I also think this should affect our purchasing policy too. Currently, we rule the regional district of Nanaimo in our purchasing policy. We might have to expand to include some of these communities too. So I think that's part of this might be the future. So our purchasing policy now states that someone within the regional district may get a bonus, I think, and previously in bids we've had our business licenses as part of your bid package. So I think we have to look at that eventually too. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question has been answered. I was interested in how many other municipalities have signed on. I understand that Duncan has confirmed absolutely that they would be.
Yes, Duncan and Ladysmith are in the process, and I believe one of the others are in that process. And as I say, all of them showed the interest that they are starting to move through it this late summer and fall.
Great, thank you so much.
Councillor Kay.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two questions. One is, why is it restricted to only 12 and not Campbell River south to Victoria?
Presently, sorry, Your Worship, presently the greater Victoria area, the 13 municipalities down there have their own program in place. And so what the contact has been in the Mid and North Island is all municipalities other than Ucluelet and Tofino, I believe, are participating in this, with the goal possibly over the coming years is to include the entire Vancouver Island under one program. But once we have this program in place, if council approves it and the other councils, then the discussion could take place with the the CRD, Capital Regional District municipalities.
Thank you. Supplemental. What constitutes a Nanaimo-based business according to the rules of this?
The general circumstances, if you have a storefront or a business in Nanaimo, then you're a Nanaimo-based business, and therefore you'd take a primary business license and a intermunicipal out in that case. Is that your question? Because there are occasional cases where a business may be set up in the regional district of Nanaimo, but the regional district is not a participant in this because they don't have a business license program, and therefore, like a business in the regional district would come out and take their primary and intermunicipal in Nanaimo.
So they would have to have an address in Nanaimo, which would be physical in nature.
They could come out from outside of Nanaimo and come here and get a business license as, someone who works or has a business in the regional district, if they wanted to pursue an intermunicipal license.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
So just to clarify, we do require businesses that do business in Nanaimo, even if they're not located in Nanaimo, to have a business license already.
Correct. So my point would be a business from Vancouver with a Nanaimo business license, then saddling onto this to get an interregional license, if you will.
Yes.
They'd actually have to have a physical location in Nanaimo.
No, they don't have to have a physical location, but if they want to take advantage of the intermunicipal component of that, then they would have to come and take out a license here or any other of the participating municipalities as the primary, and then a secondary to operate in all the other areas.
Okay, thank you.
If I can, just to pick up on that, this community-wide or this regional one would have the same rate everywhere. So there would be no advantage if somebody was based in Vancouver, to pick up on Councillor McKay's point, and could they go to, say, Ladysmith and take out a business license there and then apply for this interprovincial one?
Yes, they could go anywhere, and the intermunicipal business license is going to have to be the same fee throughout. There is slightly different rates in certain participating municipalities that in some cases, I believe it's as low as $130 a year. The City of Nanaimo and a number of others are in the range of $165 a year. So they could choose to go to another one in Councillor McKay's example, but likely if they're doing a lot of business in Nanaimo, again, given our size, they would most likely come here for their primary license.
So, Mr. Siebert, if I could, then if you have an intermunicipal license, then can you give us a ballpark figure of how it would save an Nanaimo-based business money if they had that, rather than having to take out a City of Nanaimo license, a Ladysmith one, a Duncan one, Chemainus, and so on, all these different communities within the area that we're looking at? Is there a ballpark figure of how much, on a percentage basis, they might save by having this new concept?
Well, taking an example of a building contractor who operates in every one of these municipalities, in this circumstance, you pay a $165 city fee and a $150 intermunicipal. If he would save the 10 or 11 other fees of approximately $150 each, so he'd save $1,500, he or she, in that circumstance. So he'd be paying approximately $300 instead of $1,800.
Yeah, I think that's the reason the Chamber brought it forward, because I think it's something that we all need to look at it regionally, and I think it's a great idea, which I support. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick comment on Councillor McKay's points. I suspect that if a business from Vancouver otherwise wished to take out a P.O. box while they were doing work in Nanaimo, they'd be able to use that address, physical address, as a landing point for their business. But just a comment. Question, if any of the 12 municipalities choose not to participate, will that change the fee as proposed at $150?
No, it won't. The whole intent is still to have a uniform fee across the board. And if only 10 out of 12 end up participating, no, there will be no fee difference.
Okay, thank you. And second question, noticeable by absence is the township of Blancheville not included in this list. I'm just curious as whether or not there's, if you could just explain why they're absent.
Yes, the belief is over time, District of Blancheville may also be in this program. When they were initially contacted, they we're taking steps to look at it, but haven't proceeded to that point currently.
I would have to think that it would be a neighbor that we would like to be participating?
Yes, I would think so.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnstone.
Yes, just briefly, Your Worship, just to thank Susan Allen and the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber of Commerce membership for bringing this forward for Council's consideration and implementation, which I'm sure will benefit all of our local mobile businesses. So thank you.
Okay, so I see no further questions on this. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. We're moving into the subdivision approval, parks and cash in lieu at 6200 Dumont Road. Purpose to obtain council approval for a cash payment in lieu of parkland dedication for a 20-lot subdivision. And the motion's there, if somebody would wish to make it.
I'll make the motion, Your Worship.
Passed on the draw there.
The council approve the payment of cash in lieu park for fee simple subdivision of lands as described below. Address 6200 Dumont Road, and the balance as you see there, Your Worship.
Okay, seconder? Moved and seconded. Discussion? Councillor Beswick?
Yeah, just a question to staff. So when we speak to this, I recognize that it's difficult to apply the amount at this point in time. Is it reasonable to assume that there will be 20 doors?
Yes.
And is it further reasonable to assume that the amount will reflect, and there will be potentially detached units or otherwise? And I recognize that this is on the amount, the appraised amount. Is that? So that's how we discern.
Worship,
what
this is determined on 5% of the pre-development appraised value. So it won't be a direct relation to the number of doors. It'll be a direct relation to the pre-development value of the land as set by statute.
Right. Okay.
So I'm just trying to get the place here so that it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And moving to K, heat pump education program, purpose to advise council of the actions taken by staff to inform the public and in particular heat pump installers of the city's zoning regulation for heat pumps. And the staff recommendation is that council receive the information. Councillor Johnston?
I'd like to move staff's recommendation that council receive the information regarding the heat pump education program.
Okay, is there a second? Moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into I, like India, the Realtor Energy Efficiency Project, or REAP, update. Purpose to obtain, to provide council with an update on the project to develop an energy efficiency incentive program with Nanaimo Realtors. Staff recommendation that council receive the information in the report concerning that same topic. So moved. And second? Moved and seconded. Is there a second? They're hiding somewhere?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Property maintenance bylaw number 1990-3704. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to property maintenance for the properties listed below. And the motion is that council, pursuant to property maintenance bylaw 1990 number 3704, direct the owners of the following properties to remove the materials as listed below from the premises within 14 days, or the work will be done by the city or its agents at the owner's cost. The first property is 1348 Jester's Way. Blackberry bushes and broom encroaching onto neighboring properties. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 1348 Jester's Way? The second property has been pulled, and the third property is 3084 Barons Road. There's graffiti on the building. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 3084 Barons Road? Seeing none, if somebody would like to move. Sorry?
Whitewash.
Could you get names from these people that are interrupting me here? Anyway, if someone would like to move the motion that we direct the property owners to do the work within 14 days.
Your Worship, I'll move that council, pursuant to property maintenance bylaw 1990-3704, direct the owners of the following properties to remove the materials as listed below from the premises within 14 days, or the work will be done by the city or its agents at the owner's cost.
I think Councillor Brennan seconded, did you? No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into unresolved building deficiencies. Notice on title, section 5.7. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to unresolved building deficiencies for the properties listed below. And the staff recognition that council by resolution instruct the corporate officer to file a bylaw contravention notice respecting the properties listed below at the Land Title and Survey Authority of the British Columbia under Section 5.7 of the Community Charter. The first property is 591 8th Street. Construction not completed, permit expired. Is there anyone in attendance tonight that would like to speak to matters related to 591 8th Street? The second property is 5296 Williamson Road. Construction not completed, permit expired. Is there anyone here in attendance tonight that would like to speak to matters related to 5296 Williamson Road? The third property is 678 2nd Street, illegal secondary suite, construction of a secondary suite without a building permit. Anyone in attendance tonight that would like to speak to matters related to 678 2nd Street?
Move staff's recommendation, Your Worship.
Okay, second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is corporate services, designating the City of Nanaimo boardroom as the council chamber for the purpose of tax sale. And the purpose to obtain council approval to allow the annual tax sale to be conducted in the boardroom of the Services and Resource Center. Would someone like to move that recommendation? Moved.
Recommend that council designate the boardroom of the Service and Resource Center at 411 Dunsmere Street as the council chamber for the purpose of the tax sale.
Seconder? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We're moving into assessment roll adjustments. Purpose to inform council of changes in assessment values that will affect the current years. And the motion is there. If someone would like to move that.
So moved.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Community services, minutes of the Parks, Recreation, Culture Commission meeting held 2013, June 26th. And the motion that council received for information, the minutes of the Parks, Recreation, Culture Commission meeting held in the Service and Resource Center at 411 Dunsmere Street at 2013, June 26th at 7 p.m.
Move receipt of the minutes. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Harbour City Football Club lease agreement, approval in principle, and it's to be introduced by PRCC Chair, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Johnson.
Your Worship, I'd like to move that that council approve in principle the disposition of a 5-year lease to the Harbour City Football Club, and to authorize staff to publish a notice of disposition as required under sections 24 and section 26 of the Community Charter.
Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Discussion? Councillor Bester.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Just a quick question. Is this football club the only leasee in the building?
This is soccer and yeah.
Your Worship, yes.
Thanks. And I note that insurance is carried and et cetera, which is great. When the venue ages, are we allocating in a building reserve in the event of a roof being required, or downspouts, or otherwise, beyond just the interior wear and tear of the leasee?
Through your worship, so it's part of our asset management plan, because the role that we'll play on this facility is the envelope of the building, so roof, siding, and absolutely, that'll be part of.
So with regard to putting money aside, we'll only be as successful at that as council approves in our budget. Last year, you'll recall that council approved the 1% levy to go towards asset management, and that's the recommendation in the 5-year plan. However, that'll be up to council every year at budget time.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnston.
As your worship, just to also mention that the football club has agreed to paying a larger portion of the utilities than other users, so this is a good
That's
thing.
an improvement for the city. That's great. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And actually, there's two, 1 and 2. The move into the sport tournament grant, front runners, BC Cyclocross Championships, to be introduced by PRCC Chair, Councillor Johnstone.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move that council approve a sport tournament grant to Front Runners BC Cyclocross Championships event in the amount of $1,000.
Second.
Moved and second. Sorry, okay, and discussion. I see none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And the travel assistance grant, Nanaimo and District Minors Softball Association under 14 girls, to be introduced by PRCC Chair,
Thank
Councillor
you.
Johnson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move staff's recommendation that council approve the application for the travel assistance grant to the Nanaimo and District Minor Fastball Association U14 girls in the amount of $650 for 13 athletes to attend the provincial championships to be held in Surrey, BC.
Okay, is there a seconder? Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The conversion of the existing propane Zamboni to electric, to be introduced by PRCC Chair, Councillor Johnston.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to move that council approve the conversion of the existing propane Zamboni to electric using funds in the Zamboni reserves.
So moved. Second.
Okay, and we have some questions. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Your Worship. This one's really interesting. In so much as it was just a year ago that we opted to purchase an electric Zamboni just shy of $200,000. And at the time, we discussed the merits of the purchase of an electric Zamboni versus the conventional at roughly a third of the price, or a little bit greater. And when I read in the recommendation background that the conversion to electric will cost approximately $32,000, but will result in an anticipated life cycle savings on operating and maintenance costs of approximately $60,000, for a net benefit of $28,000 rounded over the remaining 10-year life, which clearly extends the life of this Zamboni that has 5 years left in it, but when we convert it, we'll have 10. And then I wonder about our inventory of Zambonis. So we were choosing to purchase at the highest end an electric Zamboni for $200,000, plus or minus, while having an inventory or an excess inventory of Zambonis. I think we have 6 in our inventory. And if we were to convert all 6 at 32,000 and extend their life cycles by 5 years and reduce the operating expenses of all of them, we could have, in fact, if my calculations are correct, we could have, in fact, converted every Zamboni to electric to meet our GHG and all of these environmental standards that we're working toward, which was part of the pitch to go electric on the one, for the cost of one new Zamboni. So I'm somewhat perplexed that we didn't take one of those old ones at the time, a year ago, convert it, experiment, and then determine whether or not it would be a good idea moving forward before we invested in a new one. So I'm not opposed to this, but it raises questions for me that we could have converted every Zamboni in our fleet for the same price as purchasing one new one.
Okay, staff may have an opinion, but I think Councillor Johnston, as the chair of Parks,
Yes, and then I'll refer back to Suzanne, but it's the purchase of the one that we did retire, Councillor Bestwick, it had reached the end of its useful life. That one couldn't be converted. It was too old and too tired, so we had to retire that particular unit.
I recognize that. So a year ago, we could have retired it and converted it, which would have allowed us not to purchase a new one. Because essentially, that's what we're doing. Essentially, we're taking something that is, we're going to put out to the pasture, old and tired, and we're going to bring life to it for 10 more years for $32,000 which will potentially amount to a net benefit saving of $27,000 over its life cycle, on the assumption that we don't have to put a new battery in the thing.
Your Worship, I think we need a motion before we go much farther on talking.
Was there a motion on that one? There is, I believe.
There was a motion. I made the motion.
Yeah.
So,
and there's a second.
It's just a very interesting topic to me.
You're very knowledgeable.
So it's, yeah.
Ms. Zamborski, go ahead. Yeah.
I'll start off and then I'll hand it off to Bruce LaBelle, our fleet manager, who might be able to give more information from that. Is that absolutely, so this is looking at getting an additional 5 years life, so it would be a 10-year, another 10 years then out of that same Zamboni. Councillor Johnston's correct, is that the Zamboni that we replaced was past its useful life. It had actually gone past its date, so not sure, and that's where Bruce might be able to help out, is whether or not it actually could have been converted at that time. My understanding is that to extend it past its useful life, we wouldn't have gotten another 5 years or 10 years. And correctly so, we will have 6. Partly the Zambonis, as they age out, while they're running, we use that to take out, when we take ice out, so we can chip away at the ice and it doesn't, it doesn't damage the good equipment. But we are going to be looking at the fleet and looking at whether or not there is the ability to reduce our fleet down to 5. And that's something that we're going to be working with Mr. LaBelle on this fall to take a look at that. And then as far as maybe just more information about why, I know there was some thinking around whether or not we knew and understood the technology well enough to be able to do conversion. And so maybe if Bruce, you want to give some more information
Mr.
on
LaBelle,
that.
you want to comment?
Sure, thank you. So we've chosen this Zamboni because it does have 5 years left in its useful life. So our Zambonis are given 15-year life cycles. We feel that doing this conversion and extending it for an additional 5 years for a total of 20 is reasonable. There's other components, not just the engine, conditioners and the drivetrain and the hydrostatic system. The Zamboni that we replaced with the electric Zamboni had already exceeded the 15 years, so to push it out another 10 didn't seem reasonable. Did I answer your question?
Well, in theory, sure. When we talk years, for me, it's hours. It's hours of use. Something could be 15 years old and have 2,000 clicks on it, or something could be 15 years old and be the only one that you have in your system, so you're running the operation 24/7 and et cetera. So years is different than use for me. And when we talk about removing ice and using older equipment, and so which to do that, obviously the plant's down, obviously there's other options to bring in other machinery to take ice out with. You shave the ice down to the paint. We all understand that in the business, but you don't, it's not the only way that you can take ice out. So you can save wear and tear on your Zambonis, but we have 6. We have 2 venues. We have 2 venues. We don't have 4 venues and 1 spare sitting at the yard in case something happens at one of those 4 venues. We've got 2. So to have 6 in our asset management is a little overkill. And if we've got something that's got 5 years left in it and we can get 10 out of it, great. My only point is that if we've got 5, 1 got really tired and had to be put to pasture, then convert all the other 5 for the 32 grand, save the 27 on each one a year, and we wouldn't have needed to buy the new one. That's, at the time, that's my point. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. So when you talk about using the old machine for shaving ice, does it get packed onto a trailer and go down to Nick?
Your Worship, if we do transport back and forth, they do go onto a tow truck and get back and forth, yes.
No, that's not my question. My question is, if that's what we're keeping those extra machines for, does it go down to Nick for the purpose of taking ice out?
Yes, it would go down to Nick. And so, Your Worship, and that is why that now we do have the electric Zamboni, so our fleet's back up to having good working equipment. We are looking at downsizing the fleet for that reason.
Supplemental. So last year, I dug out the sheet from last year. Last year, we were looking at retiring a resurfacer that was a 1988 model. Where is it?
You want me to answer that? Okay. So currently we have 6. We would like to go ahead and convert 1 to electric, and then we would like to get rid of the 1988. We would like to take this opportunity while we have the additional Zamboni to be able to take one out of service to do the conversion. So for us, it's an opportunity before we get rid of that 6th machine. So the 1988 will go, the 1996 should be our only backup machine.
And supplemental, if I may. And this, I understand, is going to be done by a local company. This is not a Zamboni retrofit. This is a one-off, only one in the world that will have this conversion.
So, Your Worship, there is other companies doing electric conversions on Zambonis, and there's another gentleman back in, I believe, Nova Scotia that's used the same components, but this is not a Zamboni factory conversion. This is almost the identical conversion to the one that our city staff did to the Ford Ranger in 2011.
So these are proprietary products that would come from the supplier that you purchased them from, and it'd be a one-off. It'd be the only one in the world.
Just for clarity, this would be the only one using this kit in its complete form. There is another one that we know of that used part of this kit in Nova Scotia, and there is other companies using different components to do essentially the same thing that we are, which is remove the engine and run the hydrostatics and the drivetrain with an electric motor and batteries.
Good, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kip.
Thank you. I guess the last year's deal kind of throws me off on this because we could have, it's the cost now. We knew in 2011 we could convert. The guy in or up in Coombs converts all the time. So we knew in 2011 we could convert an F-150. Then we come forward with that $170,000 purchase that I voted against. This is where I wish we had options every time we do stuff. If we're converting one of our trucks now, one of our Zambonis, let's start looking at converting the rest of our community fleet. Not just Parks and Rec, but Public Works and all of them. For some reason, it seems to me like I'm really disappointed we spent 170 when we find out a year later we can spend about 30 to 40 to do the same job. That's really disappointing. I mean, and I didn't think we needed $170 Zamboni, and now I realize we didn't. Thank you. Oh, budget cuts. I couldn't get budget cuts on Parks and Rec.
You did, you got some.
Okay, so I see no further speakers. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion, Councillor McKay opposed. Balance council in favor. The motion passes. We'll move into the bylaws with no accompanying report. 11A, motion that zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 2013 number 4500.041 to be amended to amend the permitted uses, density and height within the old city infill service commercial DD 11 or 11 zone be adopted.
So moved, Your
Move.
Worship.
Seconder, moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And B, motion that zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 2013 number 4500.042 to amend the zoning bylaw 4500 rezone the property at 141 Westwood Road from rural resource AR1 to single dwelling residential small lot R2 in order to facilitate a residential subdivision past third reading.
Your Worship,
Yes.
if I may, I would so move that zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 2013 4500.042 to amend zoning bylaw 4500 to rezone property at 141 Westwood Road from rural resource to single dwelling residential small lot in order to facilitate a residential subdivision past third reading.
Okay, and you second it? Okay.
I'd like to speak to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. This one, coming forward on a large property on going to small lot. When we initiated this some time ago, and the concept for infill and density in city cores and otherwise, which was I think the intention when we originally proceeded. And while I'm extremely in favor of the density in so much as it relates to the community that the density is going into and the form and character, I'm really going to be watching this one as we move forward on the assumption that there may be more larger, small lot specific subdivisions. And if this turns into what I hope it does, and will be a model for all future large massing small lot developments, then this one to me is going to be the one that all others need and should follow. And when I say that with all due respect to the developer and the development and the location. And Your Worship, I'm not certain where it's appropriate to make another motion to accompany this. And if you'll indulge me, I'd just like to ask staff, I'd like to craft a motion that directs staff to bring back a report as it relates to small lot subdivisions beyond a certain number of units. And if that happens today, fine. If it doesn't happen today, Your Worship, I understand that, but it is something, and perhaps this is a notice of motion to bring forward at a later date, giving time to speak with staff. I just really want to make sure, and sitting with other colleagues here, and others have been at the DPRC when we've talked about issues like this, and we have a work plan, and I don't want to see something slip through the cracks that isn't our intentions moving forward. I think this has a lot of merit. I'm going to support it. Really keep a close eye on it to make sure that this is the one that all futures need to aspire to be as good as or better than. So thank you for indulging me, Your Worship.
Okay, is there a staff comment on that? Maybe not. There's not a required one. I just wondered. Mr. Anderson, if you want to go ahead.
Respecting when I'll refer to our corporate officer, but in terms of the idea of clarifying the intent of the R2 zone and looking for staff to look at the scale and the implementation of subdivisions of larger parcels using the R2 zone, I think that forms something of a recommendation to staff to review. In terms of when that would occur, I'll defer that.
Thank you, Your Worship. So again, it doesn't need to happen tonight, but perhaps I could suggest that as a notice of motion somewhere in the scheme of things that I will be bringing back a notice of motion.
Maybe it's a recommendation to staff to bring that back.
I'll just make a simple notice of motion, Your Worship, and I'll work with staff on it.
Okay. So, Councillor Kipp.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of concerns I have with this one. One is that small lot massing. That goes to the other one, whether this is just an infill with a few small lots or lots split up, or this single lot massing. I know back in 96 when we looked at including small lots, and they were a lot bigger then, 650 square meters, versus now getting down under, well, 300 and stuff, some of them. This is also a very unique area. This is a massing of houses in this area, unlike most of the houses around the area. But I like the idea. It's affordable housing. I think they've done some tree protection. I'm concerned with a bit of the rock blasting. That it's a rock area, so that's going to how they affect the rest of the community. But more to me, it's this massing. How does it fit? Does this work? Another one is the traffic at either end of this. Up on the top end of Westwood Road at Jinglepot, that's that intersection is getting pretty crazy, and this is another, say, 26 houses. And possibly 52 cars. And at the other end, we have some road alignment issues that I'm concerned with. So I think we have to look at this area in our transport. And I support the idea of small lot subdivisions, but this type of massing is pushing it in this area from my perspective.
But I think from staff, are we not getting some type of a traffic flow request in for this particular area? This particular intersection that Councillor Kipp referred to, I think, has been identified as a potential problem. But it's not in the next 5-year plan, is that correct?
Yes, two things to that is, number one is our traffic staff have reviewed the impact on that intersection and believe it will increase traffic by approximately 2%. The second point is that our traffic staff are aware that as intersections become closer to the capacity, then they potentially would be put in the 5-year plan, depending on what the priorities are. But this is one intersection that, yes, they will keep their eye on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And moving over to correspondence, there's 5 items. If we'd like to, first of all, move the correspondence. Moved and second. And all in favor? Opposed? Any business arising from any of the 5 that someone wants to bring forward? Okay. And we'll now move down into council appointments. I don't think there's any notice of motion. And number 15. Oh, do you want to do the notice of motion here?
For technical, I suppose, to be proper, I would notice a motion to bring a notice of motion relative to small lot subdivision report, but something. Thanks.
I was going to ask you, Ms. King, if you got that, but you're nodding, so you must.
She's got it.
She speaks best week. Okay, and then number 15, I think we have Councillor McKay had something you wanted.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to recognize that yesterday, about 30 young men from Nanaimo worked very, very hard for 51 hours and actually broke a Guinness World Record for the world's longest hockey game, longest indoor hockey game. And it was really quite touching. I was I was at Frank Crane with Councillor Bestwick at the time that the game ended, and it was really quite emotional, to be quite honest with you. Those boys were exhausted, but boy, they were sure proud of themselves. So, my God, what a wonderful, wonderful event. And proceeds of the event went to Big Brothers Big Sisters. And just so you know, young Telly Campbell, who was the organizer of the entire event, is in the gallery tonight. And I just really want to say congratulations to him and everyone involved in that event. Very
well done, Telly.
And I understand they're going to go for the outside record next year, which is 105 hours.
I'm looking to see if there's a nod or a shake of the head up there. Well, congratulations.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, and then we're going to move into the question period then. Agenda items only.
Fred Taylor. It was quite interesting to hear about our fleet and Zambonis and that sort of thing, and concern about the rest of our fleet, etc. Would that include fire trucks? We lost a ladder truck that was no miles on it for $5,000 or something like that. You know, and I hear sometimes when we look at new fire trucks, the insurance advisory people, 15 years. I got a letter about 20 years ago from them saying we downgrade them like that, so an area without any tax revenue, you get the truck and we upgrade it for them. No, I got upset. But we seem to still be in that groove. You got a truck that's no miles on it and maintain it, change the pump or whatever else, it's a lot cheaper than $1 million. So I hope it's part of the fleet concern. The next thing I'd like to comment on is heat pumps. And I believe it started with the Board of Variance, because they were getting a lot of variances to location. Could anyone tell me that the location has been confirmed in the present rules before we read the Riot Act, everybody, that these are the rules? I don't believe we entertained the question properly that with new pumps, no noise, all sorts of stuff, they could be in the front yard. That was the biggest concern before the Board of Variance, but it seemed to be put down, and these are the rules. I don't get it. Needs to be re-entertained. Business license bylaw was discussed somewhat. If we get involved with other communities where someone from another community can come here and do business, are we going to have a website with all the businesses that are licensed in the other communities on our site so that I can check and see if somebody that's wanting to do business at my door, I can go to the website and see if he's licensed from somewhere else to be allowed to work here?
Well, that's a good question. Mr. Sieber, do you have a comment on that?
Yes, what we're working with is a website application that could list all businesses that are participating in this program.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And the next question is, if I stand to be corrected, but I believe if a firm doing the same business, same ownership, everything has got 10 locations in Nanaimo, they only need one business license. And I don't think that's fair to somebody else that it's only a one-office operation in comparison to coverage in our community. I think each location should be licensed.
Mr. Sieber?
I will research that for Mr. Taylor and council, of course, but I believe that each location requires a separate business license.
Well, we'll check that.
No, I've debated that before we have business license.
Well, we're going to research that for you.
Yeah,
Get back
well,
to you.
business license inspector confirms
So
it.
if you know the answer, then you don't
Yeah,
really need the
and I
question.
don't agree with what's going on here. And also, if you take a doctor or lawyer's office, every doctor and lawyer, if you look at their letterhead, has a separate corporation, but he hides under one license. Every corporation should have a license. So if there's 10 lawyers in an office, 10 corporations, 10 licenses.
Your Worship, that was the practice some years ago, and when council reviewed the bylaw 10 or so years ago, there was a lot of complaints about that because, for example, an accounting firm might have several accountants, a law firm, several lawyers. And council elected in its wisdom to have one business license for the entire operation.
But I stand to be corrected. I believe it was the Chamber of Commerce. They were pushing that too, and at that time, and they got motives, in my opinion, only. And I don't agree with it because I think if you're running 10 corporations, individual corporations, so you can't touch somebody if they cause a problem.
because they're under a separate corporation. They're not really licensed under that umbrella.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. Raises an interesting point. I'm just wondering about, as independent business people, as they are, as real estate agents, falling under the banner of a real estate company, would there be one license versus one for each realtor? Is that how that would work?
Yeah, that's the direction that council decided to go. Same with a mortgage broker. They might have a half dozen mortgage brokers in the office, but they have one license because it comes under one umbrella office.
And they can individually deduct their car expenses, everything individually.
Interesting point.
Gord Fuller, 604 Nickel Street. Got a couple questions here with regards to the Harewood plan. One is was brought to my attention from someone who couldn't make it tonight. He wanted some stuff clarified in the plan. The description of Colliery Park, the last line on that description states, and it's on page 186, I believe, states, in the 1950s, the land was sold by Canadian colliers to the city of Nanaimo for use as a park, when in fact it's believed that it was actually purchased by the Harewood Improvement District, not the city of Nanaimo, and in 1975, when the Harewood amalgamated with the city of Nanaimo, the park then came into the city hands. So if that could be corrected, I mean, we don't want to rewrite history if we actually have the correct history. And another question that I have is, I went to a number of the public meetings about the Harewood Community Plan. I mean, this stuff interests me. I was on the advisory thing with the South End Community Plan. And I had noticed, and I brought this up to Chris Scholberg at one of the meetings, that when they had the borders of the Harewood community, Colliery Dam was not even included in those borders at the public information meetings where they were getting feedback. And now I notice that in the final draft of the plan, it's actually included in the borders. And unfortunately, by not including it with the public information sessions, a lot of people may not have stated anything with regards to Colliery Dam for the neighborhood plan because they didn't think it was even being considered in the neighborhood. So I'm wondering when it was decided to finally put it back into the Harewood community.
Changes done tonight.
It was requested by Tim McGrath several weeks ago,
Okay.
and I think that staff took direction from council to include it.
Well, that's good because I had mentioned it a couple months ago too. To city
It
staff.
was in response to Tim McGrath.
Good. Thank you.
Your Worship? Yeah. I just wanted to make a comment on the sale of Colliery Dam Park to whomever. I think that the best place, obviously, for us to try to confirm that would be through the archives. Some people's memories fail, some people have different memories than others, and I know that the archives often have people who are adamant that something happened, but the archives will reflect something different. So if there is going to be any pursuit of that, it probably should be done through the archive.
Your Worship, I think the delegation is correct, and that's probably an oversight in our materials, and if it's incorrect, we'll fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Could I suggest that land titles gives you the most accurate?
Sorry, I can.
Land titles
Oh, yeah.
gives you the most accurate ownership of the property from person to person.
Yeah.
Not archives or somebody else's. May have newspaper ads or something a little bit misleading. But and we have a land department connection right to the land titles for that. No problem.
Okay.
And could I ask, I noticed several meetings now that, are we employing a security guard to stand here for the full meeting? Why is that?
Well, you know what?
He's supposed to be patrolling the building and he stands here all night during our meeting?
Your Worship,
He needs to look at it.
I believe
This is
the Vancouver Island Conference Centre provides security for the facility, and they may be instructed or feel it's wise to be here during the meeting. That's up to them. We don't instruct them.
This isn't the city directive, it's
Well,
Vancouver Island
it's a
Conference.
big place to look after, not just this one room.
No, it's true.
Motion, move adjournment, move adjournment.
Oh, okay.
Robert Fuller, 3350 Hammond Bay Road. I have a couple of questions as to the Ipsos read or the Ipsos survey. I was wondering how much this survey cost.
Your Worship, the cost was, I believe, about $7,000, and it's done as part of the Balanced Scorecard program, which Council and the staff have embarked on together to identify certain measurements and to seek information, and this is one of them, so it will be reported and compared as part of that process.
And my second question is, why subscribe to a survey which tends to use a 4-point as opposed to a 5-point answering system? That is, it can tend to lead to false positive answers. When I was doing a little bit of research on this, I find that most municipalities tend to use the 4-point answering system without any middle ground in there. And I noticed when I went to the resort municipality of Whistler in their survey, their own survey, they did 500 people plus an online survey, and with the middle ground there, with instead of good, great, poor, very poor, they also had average, and it tends to change the overall answers as in taxes and services. The overall satisfaction of city services tends to change dramatically. And basically, I was wondering why the 4-point system as opposed to the 5-point system, or is that up to them what they're doing?
Yeah, this is a standard methodology chosen by Ipsos, and it's consistent with all the work they do around the province with municipalities on this questionnaire. They may use other processes for other questionnaires, but this is part of a standard program that they applied.
And I think the advantage, too, on it, Mr. Fuller, is that by using the same format, we can go back to previous years and make a fair comparison, whereas if you change the criteria. But your point's taken, and maybe the next time we come up for review, we should look at some other options on it, too.
Yes, I was just thinking that in specific with things like taxation and that, when it can change that dramatically, and if the city itself is looking to address these problems,
Sure.
It would just be a whole lot easier to do it that way rather than to take this sort of good issue, I guess.
Okay,
Thank you.
Before you go,
I was
Councillor Brandon?
just going to comment that if we changed from the Ipsos Reid format, we wouldn't be able to compare ourselves to the Ipsos Reid cities. If there, you couldn't make up. It just wouldn't be a valid comparison at that point.
Well, see, I'm not interested in comparing myself to other cities. I'm Nanaimo. I'm not Delta or Vancouver. Thank you.
Okay, sir, thank you. Okay, motion's in, we stand adjourned. Thank you.